Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope you are having a fabulous morning already. I know it's early. I I don't know how long I'll actually keep these on, but I thought they would be fun for today's topic. We've been covering some amazing things lately, and with Halloween next week and parties already ensuing, I thought it was essential not only to lighten things up, but also to cover some basic safety and wellness tips for all ages with Halloween around the corner. Most of this should already be known, but it never hurts to review, especially since costumes provide an element of anonymity that merits awareness, especially in this day and age. So stick around, because even if you don't have young children, we are going to cover some adult things too. Good morning, Danielle. How are you? I'm feeling a little batty today. But even if you don't have young children, we're going to cover some adult stuff too today, with some things you might not think of or know about. So if you are just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I am a wellness advocate. I am a certified personal trainer. I am a grad school studying for my master's in mental health counseling. I am an activewear fanatic with an online boutique. Good morning, Miss Danielle. We have two Danielles this morning. Woo. And a lot of times wellness is a broad topic. It covers a lot of things. Sometimes we talk about body stuff. Sometimes we talk about food, exercise. But a lot of times what we end up talking about is wellness. Thank you, Danielle. A lot of times what we end up talking about is wellness. But like I said, we've been digging pretty hard into some mindset stuff lately. So today is a great day to talk a little bit about Halloween safety. Thus the bat glasses. I've actually had these for quite some time. And I thought to myself when I set this Wellness Wednesday up, that gosh, it would be great if I had a mask that I could live with, to do this with. And then I had forgotten about these, and I just happened to see them this morning. So this was kind of a last minute thing. But you know, a little spontaneity goes a long way, right? So if you're here, let me know you're here. Good morning, Miss Paula. I see your face bubble. Feel free to ask questions, make comments. If I'm lucky, good morning, Drew. If I'm lucky, Facebook will show me all of the things, and I'll see your comments and questions before I get done. And if not, I will answer them afterwards. So let's get started. Halloween safety and tips, not just for young ones, but for adults too. A lot of this stuff you should already know. Maybe you don't. Different generations have been taught different things. And there might be a couple things here that you don't know, because I didn't know them either. So let's get started. For young trick-or-treaters and their parents, trick-or-treating's changed a lot since I was a child. I grew up in northern Michigan, and my parents used to take me into Petoskey. Sometimes just one of them, sometimes both of them. And they would drop me off at the end of one street in a pretty dense neighborhood. And I would walk with my paper bag, or my pillowcase in my costume, down the street, and they would meet me at the other end. Or sometimes I would walk down one side of the street and up the other. The houses were pretty close together, and it was a lot of fun. I was usually alone, and I was usually in some kind of awesome costume. However, I also was usually in some kind of a jacket to cover it up, because sometimes it was snowing by Halloween. So trick-or-treating looks a lot different than we would not think in most cases. Good morning, Miss Erica. We would not think of letting our children just walk down a long street by themselves with us at one end or the other, because things have changed. So, you know, this is what I would do. I would go to houses. If people invited me in for a cup of hot cocoa, I would go in. I wouldn't even think twice about it. If I didn't have some awesome homemade costume on, I frequently had is it hard to take me seriously like this? Okay, so we wanted to lighten things up today. I was wearing one of those plastic costumes with the weird plastic masks. We've seen memes on Facebook about whole classrooms full of these type of things. So this is what my Halloween looked like, but Halloween doesn't really look like that anymore, because things are just different now, and maybe not as safe. Maybe we didn't worry. Good morning, Aunt Lois. Maybe we didn't worry as much about, you know, entering a house if somebody invited us in for a cup of cocoa or invited us in to pick something from a bigger stash of candy or whatever. We didn't really think about those things back then. So how can we be safe? All right. How can we be safe with the kids? Stay in groups where several trusted adults can help monitor all the children, because it's not as, like I said, it's just not as safe anymore to just drop a child off at the end of one street. I was probably 7 or 8 when we were doing this, and let them walk down the end of one long street and come back on the other side and meet at the car. So stay in groups where several trusted adults can help monitor the children. Keep costumes simple. Falling is the second. This is something I didn't know. Falling is the second most common Halloween injury because of tripping over costumes or costumes getting tangled up in the child's legs. And make sure masks provide a full range of vision. Like, I can see my notes, I can see you with this on, but some masks, the mask that I wear, I occasionally help with a local haunted house as a scarer, and I have a mask that I wear that does not allow for much vision. And fortunately, the area that I tend to stick to at that place, I'm very familiar with, but I have to fix the mask a lot. I don't have a broad range of vision when I'm wearing it. So this is something to keep in mind because this can cause falls as well. So costumes getting tangled up in legs, hems dragging that get tripped on, and of course, masks that you can't see well through can all contribute to this second most common Halloween injury, which is falling. Make sure children are visible by using reflective tape, flashlights, and glow sticks. This is old school, y'all. We were always taught, at least in my generation, that if you were outside close to dark or after dark, you wore light colors. Reflective wasn't as big of a thing back then because you didn't have all kinds of clothes that were full of reflective materials like we do now, like I have in my activewear boutique, or like you can get on a running store with light up vests and all the things. But it was a given that if you were going to be out around or after dark, that you needed to have light colored clothes on to make you easier to see. And that just doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. I am baffled by the number of people I will see on the side of the road, excuse me, only because I saw movement, not because they were wearing anything that made them easier to see. A lot of times I'll see people riding a bike or walking. Are my glasses straight? Or walking down the road and they're wearing all dark stuff. And if I hadn't happened to see a reflection as a car drove by or hadn't happened to see them move, I likely would have never saw them. And that scares me. And that's adults. So definitely with kids, you want to make sure that they have glow sticks and they have reflective tape. And if you're walking with them, maybe you're carrying a flashlight and letting it, kind of just trail on the ground. When I run, if it's dark outside, I have an armband and I unlock the screen on my phone so that it stays lit up, and I put it on my arm so that the light on my watch and the light on my phone are constantly moving with me so that I've got points of lights that are moving to make it easier to see, along with my reflective leggings. So make sure they're visible. Make sure your children are in your sight at all times. I can't imagine knowing what I did as a child, walking around with fundraisers, knocking on doors of strangers, half a mile away from home by myself, knowing the things that I did that I didn't feel scared about, and trying to imagine taking my 7-year-old grandson somewhere and not having my eyes on him at all times in a situation like this. I just can't even imagine. It's such a vast difference between the time that I grew up in and the time we're in now. So keep your children in sight at all times. Be aware of any individuals, especially those who are masked, who are too close to you or your children. That's really important. Halloween, like I said, provides with costumes and masks, it provides a certain amount of anonymity that makes it that much easier for unsavory characters to do things without detection or without being recognized. So be aware. Be aware of what's going on around you, and be aware of the neighborhoods you're trick-or-treating in, and whether or not there are sex offenders or predators in the area. I don't know about the local community that you might live in. In my community, oftentimes there's a full page ad in the paper, either on Halloween Day or shortly before. Sorry guys, the morning crud is clearing. that says, hey kids, don't knock on these doors when you're trick-or-treating. And it's a list of sexual predators that are in the county so that kids and parents know to stay away, more importantly, parents, to stay away from those areas and not knock on those doors. Make sure children have identification and contact information for their parent or guardian, for you, in case there is a separation, so that it's easy for someone to get in contact with you. And again, I can't stress enough, stay in groups, even with the kids. We have some areas around here, some great neighborhoods that almost like what could be considered a full-on Halloween party, because the entire neighborhood hands out candy and they all expect all the kids. And it's just complete craziness in those neighborhoods, but it feels safer because everybody's kind of watching out for one another. So stay in groups or stay in neighborhood areas that you're familiar with. And of course, old school stuff right here, check bags carefully and only allow your kids or yourself to consume prepackaged items that have the packaging intact. Homemade items are great, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute here. Some people want to help the kids. They don't want to give them all the candy and crap, so they like to give them homemade items, although I don't think it's as common anymore. But even something like apples are easily tampered with. And there's some different strange people out there. So homemade items and whole fruits, only take those or consume those if they are from people you know, like, and trust. That's super important. So young adults, let's talk about young adults for a minute, because this isn't all about kids today. Young adults still like to trick or treat, but they also like to party. So know who your older child is with. Yes, we're actually going to talk about that in a minute, Erica, because there's something I learned about that. But when I get to adults, we're going to talk about that. And I'll circle back around to the kids in that respect too. So know who your older child is with, or better yet, let the adult chaperone, or be the adult chaperone for those kids. I know, so uncool, but like I said, it's a little bit different day. So if there's an opportunity to be adult chaperone, even if you're just kind of lingering in the background, watching, observing, excuse me, that is totally okay. Older kids want to stay out later. So be sure you're confident in their abilities to navigate the area that they're going. If they're going to a party, find out if there's going to be adults there. Find out if there's going to be alcohol there. That type of thing. Because if they're older kids, they're probably not really old enough to be drinking. But a lot of things goes on at parties. So also make sure that they have an electronic device for emergencies. I know you're probably thinking, if they're a teenager right now, they have an electronic device. Okay, but here's the key. They need to stay off of it while they're walking around. They need to keep it in their pocket. But when they're walking around or they're driving, they need to be fully aware. Not just for their own safety, but for everybody else's, because there's going to be kids and adults dressed up everywhere. So they need to have that electronic device, and the location needs to be set to on so you can find them and you can identify where they are in case of emergency. But they need to keep that phone in their pocket unless they're standing still in somebody's house. If they're walking or driving, that phone needs to be put away. Kind of the same for parents too, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Ask them to stay in groups of trusted peers. Does it mean they're going to do it? Possibly not. But ask them. Talk about it ahead of time. Say, I want you to be safe. I want you and your friends to be safe. Thank you, Miss Erica. I hope you'll come back and watch the end later today. Talk to them about safety. Talk to them about the importance of safety at all ages and levels, and to be not just be aware for themselves, but be on the lookout for people that are walking, for trick-or-treaters, for people that are not wearing light-colored clothing. And make sure they have an emergency plan and, of course, money to pay for a cab, Uber, etc. This looks a lot different than it did when I was younger. When I was younger, I always made sure I had a way out. Even as a young adult, excuse me, even as a young adult, I always made sure I had a little bit of extra cash in case I had to get a cab. Or wherever I went, I made sure I took my car with me, so I always had a way out. So make sure they have an emergency plan. That might look like a debit card and an Uber now, or something of that nature, or encourage them to call you to come get them if there's a problem, if they get left alone, etc. And then, of course, this is extremely important for young adults and adults. talk about the dangers of accepting or sharing beverages from others at parties, because there's so much that can go wrong there. There's just so much that can go wrong there. If you have an unscrupulous character in the party gathering, there's just take your own drink, pour your own drink. Preferably don't drink anything with alcohol if you are a young adult that's not old enough to be drinking. These are very important things, because accepting beverages from others, sharing beverages from others, is some of the top ways that you can be drugged, taken advantage of, etc. So make sure you're talking to your young adult children about these types of things. Adult parties, some of the same rules apply, right? Adult safety is important too. I want you all to be safe and well for Halloween. So especially single ones, make sure your phone is on and charged, but keep it down. Again, just like I said about the teenagers, and make sure that you're paying attention to your surroundings. Awareness is everything, no matter what time of year it is. So make sure your phone is on and charged. If you are going to a party where you may not know anyone, make sure someone you trust knows, or even better, make sure someone you trust knows where you're going, or even better, good morning, Miss Carla. Even better, go with a friend so you can watch out with each other. That's really super important. I went to a resort a few years ago in Mexico with a friend. I made it clear the types of things that are normal for me if I've had a little bit to drink, and the types of things that are not normal for me ever, no matter what I've had to drink, so that they would know that if anything happened, if I was acting out of character, it was time to get me out of there. So this is important communication. Sometimes parties go viral. Sometimes somebody posts a party invitation on Snapchat or somewhere, and the next thing you know, you've got 50 of your closest not friends showing up at your party. So that can be a little scary for your attendees and for the host. So make sure you're aware. Make sure you're only inviting people you know. Make sure that if people are bringing guests, you have an idea who they are and that you trust the people that are bringing them. And then, of course, like I said, if you're going to a party, thank you, Miss Carla. I was feeling a little batty today. And that if you are going alone, someone knows where you're going to be. And again, that you have your phone on and charged, and you have a backup, escape plan, whatever, a way that you know that you're going to get home safely, even if you've been drinking. Avoid beverages. Again, I just said this about the teenagers. This goes for adults too, if not more so, because adults hopefully are going to be more likely to be drinking than kids are. Don't accept beverages from people you don't know. Don't share beverages. Get your own drink. Bring your own drink, whatever the case may be. But be very cautious about taking beverages from people you don't know. Limit drinking or alternate water between alcoholic beverages. That is one of the best ways to kind of maintain hydration and sobriety, is even if you are going to have a little bit to drink, separate it with bottles of water to help you stay hydrated. A survey found that college students admitted to drinking an average of 6 drinks at a typical Halloween party. Now, I don't know how long a typical Halloween party lasts. I can guess about 2 to 3 hours. Don't know if there's any eating going on. But for a lot of people, 6 drinks would put them over the legal limit and possibly impair their judgment. Probably impair their judgment. So again, limit your drinking if you're going to an adult party, whether you know people or not. And make sure you're alternating plenty of water between those adult beverages if there's food, that you're snacking, so on and so forth. If you are hosting, again, try to keep your invitations. If the minute you start telling people, oh, bring some friends, it can get out of control quickly. So if you're hosting, be cautious of that. Make sure you're not serving minors, and only invite people you know. And then whether you're hosting or attending, it's a great idea to designate a sober driver. Whether you have someone that's hanging out at the house that you're hosting the party at to kind of run people home if they need it, or whether you are going to the party and you're in a group of 4 and one person says, hey, I'm going to not drink tonight. I want to make sure everybody's safe. Whatever that looks like, designate a sober driver. Now, with that said, AAA has a tow-to-go program. And a lot of times around Christmas and New Year's, 4th of July, some of the heavier drinking holidays, they will notify their customers that their customers can use their AAA membership to have them and their vehicle picked up and towed home at no charge if they've had too much to drink. I did some research a couple years ago. They did do it for Halloween, because Halloween is actually a bigger drinking holiday than you would expect. And most people don't know that, so they don't go out really expecting to drink a whole lot, or that other people will be. But there's actually a lot more drinking that goes on Halloween than you might know. So I haven't seen any announcements where AAA is doing that this year, but as a member of AAA, you could absolutely call AAA and say, hey, are you doing toe-to-go for Halloween parties and for Halloween night? It never hurts to ask. So that is something to keep in the back of your mind. If not, I think even in our small community, we have a couple of Uber drivers now. We have cabs. You have friends, phone a friend. Just make sure you are being safe, whether you're hosting or whether you're attending. Now, for adults who are handing out candy, and this is what Erica was talking about a few minutes ago, I know she was referring to kids. As kids, we knew that if there were no lights on at the house, we didn't go up to the house. That meant they didn't want to participate. They didn't want to hand out candy. They didn't want people knocking on the door. And right up until last year, if we were not handing out candy or if we were not going to be home, we were shutting off our lights. So just stick with me for just a minute. We're going to talk about adults. Use caution when carving pumpkins. It may already be too late for some of you this year because a lot of pumpkins are carved already. Some people do it the weekend before Halloween or a little closer or the day of, so they're fresh because I live in Florida and things don't stay fresh very long in Florida. But use caution when carving pumpkins. This is actually a huge source of injury for adults. So, you know, all the general knife safety rules. If it gets stuck, don't try to force it. Map out your carving beforehand if you're into that. If you're handing things out, I know we all want kids to be healthier and we want to be a vessel for that. And that's important. It really is. But we need to stay away as people that are handing out candy. We need to stay away from homemade items. We need to consider non-food alternatives if that's the direction we want to go, like pencils or stickers or those little Halloween rings that look like spiders and whatever. Those are non-food alternatives that we can do if we're concerned about allergies or we're concerned about handing out too much sugar or whatever. Stay away from homemade items. I was surprised that as recently as a few years ago, I think one of my grandkids got a bag of gummies where somebody had opened a large bag of candy and then Ziploc bagged individual pieces. Stay away from that. It's just not, as much as you are concerned about the kids, you want the parents not to worry when they encounter your item in the child's bag. You want to make sure that you're providing something that either cannot be tampered with or that has packaging that's completely intact and safe for the child or the parent that's receiving it. Stay outside or in the doorway. What I mean by this is you heard me say earlier, if you were on when I first got started, about how people would invite me in for hot chocolate or they'd have a Halloween party going on and they'd be like, oh, come in for a minute, have a piece of cake, have a cupcake, blah, blah, blah. That was nothing back then. Absolutely nothing. If there were things happening, and there may have been, the media wasn't as much on it, so we didn't hear about those things, right? So do not invite people in. This isn't just for their safety, it's for yours as well. Lots of people coming in costumes to the door, hard to discern, sometimes with bigger kids if they're actually adults or kids, especially if they're wearing masks or costumes. So don't invite people in and never allow a child. And I can remember, good morning, Miss Rachel. I can remember needing to use the bathroom, needing to pee really bad when I was a kid. And I would just ask a nice looking lady at the door if I could use her bathroom and they would always let me in and it was never a question. And my parents were in the car down the street waiting for me to circle around. Don't allow a child to come in and use the bathroom unless their adult is with them and only in an emergency. Don't invite people into your home. Again, that is just as much for their safety as it is for yours and vice versa, because it is a strange little world out there. So keep that in mind. Obviously, if a child needs to go to the bathroom, you're not going to deny them a bathroom. But again, for your own preservation and for them, keep that in mind. It is sad, Carla. But the important thing is we want to not so much focus on the bad things that can happen, but just be proactive and try to prevent those things so that trick-or-treating and Halloween parties and dressing up can continue to be fun, a fun activity to participate in, just with a safer aspect to it. So again, like I said, don't let a child in your house to use the bathroom unless their adult is with them and only in emergency. And then if, I found the years that I was handing out candy in the neighborhood where I had a lot of kids, it was so much more fun if we just had like a little party in the yard. We just had a little party in the yard. We'd have some stuff out for us. We'd have a fire going and we would hand out candy. We were easy to spot by the kids. They didn't have to come near the house. We didn't have to worry about opening and shutting the door. There were just so many things that were solved. And it was fun to just hang out in the yard with a few Halloween decorations and have a little party during trick-or-treating hours. It was safer for everybody, no questions asked. Of course, we also knew everybody in the neighborhood, so it wasn't as big of an issue, but sometimes kids from outside of the neighborhood would come in to trick-or-treat. And so it's just important, and it helps to kind of look out for everybody and kind of stay on track of things. Use LED candles instead of real ones. We love the way a candle looks in our jack-o'-lanterns. Most of us are already using LED candles at this point. And if you're using real ones, keep them away from flammable items. Keep them out of where kids are going to be walking with costumes that might, drape over or catch the light or the candle in the jack-o'-lantern. Things, stacks of hay all decorated for fall with a jack-o'-lantern on top looks great, but it's a hazard. So if you're using real candles in your jack-o'-lanterns or for decorations, keep them away from flammable items. Otherwise, LED candles are a fantastic alternative, especially if they're going to be outside where a lot of kids are going to be walking around them. So all important things. Keep pets away from trick-or-treaters for everyone's safety, including your pet. Pets can sometimes, even if they've never bitten anyone, they can get spooked. The costumes are scary. Sometimes there's a lot of loud noises. So really we're thinking about the pet here, but we're also thinking about you and any child that might catch that pet off guard. If that pet is outside, and thinks that something is scary and they're protecting their area and takes a nip at a child, it's just best to keep your pets inside and put away, especially since there's a lot of weird looking things and a lot of scary noises on Halloween. And for adults not handing out candy, let's talk about this for a minute. It has always been typical to keep the lights off. And then the kids knew and the parents knew that if the lights were off, you didn't ring the doorbell because those people were not participating. Well, the last couple of years that we had our lights off because we were getting ready to go somewhere else, we still had people ringing our doorbell. So that is obviously not a thing that children are being taught. We had a couple Halloween decorations outside, but no other lights were on. So kids are not necessarily being taught anymore to avoid that house if the lights are off. The recommendation now is, because also having all of your lights off on Halloween where there's a lot of activity and a lot of distraction, is that you can increase your risk of after dark crimes if you have your lights off. So the better choice, the recommended choice now, and this is again new information, is to consider leaving lights on or just a porch light on with a sign on your door or your gate that says, no candy here, happy Halloween, or something like that. So that kids know before they walk up that you're not participating, but you still have lights on that keeps your home and yourself safe if you do happen to be inside. It just kind of reduces the risk for everyone. So keep that in mind. That was new information for me. I had never heard that before. It was always just the rule that if the lights weren't on, you didn't go up to the door. But at the same time, I can also remember homes like mine that had Halloween decorations outside, no lights on inside. But there was enough decoration that you were like, are they in or are they out? Should I go up to the door? Should I not? So keep that in mind. So that's pretty much what I have today. Again, wanted to lighten it up a little bit, but remind you that there are safety aspects of Halloween to consider. Again, a lot of this is old school stuff that everybody should know. But I am learning that some people in newer generations don't know all these things. And sometimes they're just things we don't think about. Sometimes we go out there, we might go to a party, we think we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. We don't think about basic safety things for ourselves. We may worry about somebody else, but we don't always worry about ourselves. So these tips are going to help keep everybody safe, no matter what you're doing, whether you're a child, whether you're an adult, whether you're trick-or-treating, hosting a party, going to a party, whatever. Here's a few last tips, especially some information pertaining to driving around on Halloween. No matter what you are doing, even if you're just going to the store, be aware of your surroundings. It's really important. Drunk driving accidents. Are you ready for this? We talked about Halloween not technically being a drinking holiday. Drunk driving accidents are three times more likely to happen on Halloween than New Year's Eve, according to Florida Law Group, because people don't expect there to be a lot of drinking. Pedestrian injuries and deaths. Okay. That's anybody that's out there walking around trick-or-treating. Okay. Pedestrian injuries or deaths are 55% higher when Halloween is on a weekday. Now, I'm not sure what the correlation there is with weekdays versus weekends, but pedestrian injuries and deaths are 55% higher. So what does this mean? It means whether you're driving to the grocery store, whether you're driving to a party, whether you're driving to a neighborhood with your kids, be aware and alert. Keep the phones down. Watch what's going on around you. Don't just look for lights and reflective. Look for movement. Go slow and just be really aware, because it's important for everybody's safety, not just the kids, the adults, you, everybody's safety. Have fun. Be safe and smart. We can have fun with Halloween and be safe and smart at the same time. And remember, the candy doesn't have to all be eaten in one night. Okay, so I hope you found this helpful. I hope you had a little bit of fun with this like I did. Enjoyed my little mask costume. They weren't too bad to see through, but they really impair peripheral vision. So I'm not sure I would be walking around Halloween night with them on, because I don't like it when my peripheral vision is impaired. But I hope you enjoyed this. And if you found this helpful, definitely please share it, because Halloween is right around the corner. The weekend is coming. There's going to be all kinds of parties and shenanigans, and we want everybody to stay safe. So if you think this is helpful, please feel free to share. Thanks for joining me today. Make comments, ask questions. If you did already and I didn't answer, it's because I didn't see them, and I will. And I hope you have a fabulous Wednesday. Be well.